Right. Welcome to our first in a long time project raising on promoting Game B companies, corporations, businesses. We're going to focus on Mark Campbell's vision and intention for the hour and help move it forward as best we can. Take it from there, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Jubilee, and thanks everybody for coming. So when I first posted this about 3 weeks ago, and I got a lot of input from everyone. I think at some point I'd like to change it from Mark Campbell's vision to the Game B Facebook group's vision for driving business to Game B companies. We already had a couple of discussions, and thank you, Jubilee. It's well, first of all, a little bit of background on me. So I come from. It sounds weird to say it, but I guess a technical background, because that wasn't my best. That's not what I was best at. But I worked in the aircraft industry, and I worked on a couple initiatives to create an apprenticeship program and to gain more rights for technical specialists. So working with groups for over up to a year and over a year, and working with government regulators and all of that. So this what I found worked well, and also working with companies to create databases that function well and got used by everyone. And what I found worked best is to cast a wide net and find people at every strata of usability or management level that will come into contact with that, either that software or that legislation or that program that you're building. It's a pain, but what happens is that you get everybody that's in that room that's involved with it now becomes like an evangelist and an advocate of that thing when it finally gets developed and hits the streets. So ideally, I would like to see everybody in the Facebook group have some kind of input, maybe tracked by that software that Adriel was talking about, where they put their input in, and then it gets tracked, and the programmers can comment on it, and other people can comment on it. And if it's easy to do and urgent and important, then it will get done. If it's hard to do but important, it goes, or hard to do but important, it's a little lower, and hard to do but not important, it just drops off, and you can see why. So that is kind of like what I'd like to see happen over the next year. So basically, we talked about, and so I'm just going to mention some of the ideas, an easy to use app that gets adopted right away, that allows people, and this is, I think, Jubilee's words, the need for a meta app that pulls all the information about Game B products and companies into one simple app. It can rate companies that are beneficial. You can choose a feature set that is important to you, rate those values, and shows you companies based on that. Shows you the overall ratings as well. I think Jubilee mentioned this. It would be kind of like a cancel culture that actually works, but gives you a road to redemption, a company a road to redemption, so that you can see if a company is doing well, is improving over time, has done well, has improved over time. Hi, Alejandra, welcome. How are you?
Hi, nice to see you. Hi, everybody.
So basically just a little bit of a recap. So a meta app that's easy to use, that would show people a list of companies that have done beneficial things in the past and how they have done in the past few months. Are they trending up? Or are they trending down? And you can see that as well. So because we have that information, it would capture that. So this came out of the previous meetings. Providing a software module to companies so that they can begin the process of incorporating their companies into this list and app, so they can start it. And then the people in this work group or committee will then help to onboard that company and track and verify that information. It can be crowdsourced at the beginning, but if they provide enough hooks and they're easily verifiable, then this can grow and it can show the connections to other companies or suppliers and such. It could start with small local businesses, and it could grow to provide a platform to provide those businesses with a local market. Small companies will get priority and prominence on the app, and you can add things like products and ingredients lists later. Bentley mentioned that you can buy these ingredient lists, so that's something that can be added later. I'm not sure who mentioned this, but I thought this was important. How we can make sure that only the data we want to share gets shared with only companies we know won't use it for bad purposes. That seemed like it was important. I'm not sure how we do that, but it has to be something that is considered. There's a lot of greenwashing that's a tendency now. So that again is something that has to be considered when you're thinking about how are you going to verify this, and how are you going to make sure those ratings that you have are even still valid? Moderators to keep the bots out. I thought that was important as well. And so people want cheap and quality plus metrics like companies from the Good Guide. There was one of the things that came up is that there were 3 or 4 really, really good companies that had this kind of intent, but they weren't used. I never even heard of them until we did this. What was the other one? B Corp. I contacted them, but they just really didn't have much of a desire, I seem, to get involved with this. So that fell off the wayside. But other companies, I never heard of B Corp before. I never heard of Good Guide. I never heard of other companies, a lot of these companies. But why? So that's a big thing. We have to kind of figure out why. Because we want this to be used. We want this to be the killer app. We want this thing to people to use the word for using it, like Google. I want to make a purchase. I'm thinking about this, so I'm going to use this app to just research and get the information right away. And there's big companies that buy up other companies, so we want to know that too. It's got to be, if that happens, then this thing goes gray or something like that, and it won't rise to prominence until the rest of the stuff is filled out. I thought this was kind of gritty. You need something that tells you when someone is being a bastard. You recognize that language, Carrie? So just, something that's very, very simple, very graphic, very intuitive, that says this, this is just something that is trending the wrong direction. And we've got to point that out. Radical transparency, that's the ideal, that's the model. Companies get prominence and points for providing radical transparency. That's the ideal. May never get there, but it's just the ideal. And the app is built to grow with plugin capability for the marketplace for products, ingredients, and contracts. So at this stage, it's the casting of the wide net, still trying to gather and even know where we need input from. I'm going to need input from people who are just neophyte users, programmers, people who are business people, and people who know kind of where all the bodies are buried, and so ideally in 2 months, I would like to be able to know whether this is viable or not, to go ahead, and a year to come up with a workable list and a basic functioning app. So that is the idea. 2 months, go or no go. 12 months, something. Anyways, I'll open it up.
So I was just looking up.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just looking up the certified the B Corporation that you mentioned. I'd forgotten that was there. And just to clarify, that has nothing to do with Game B. B corporation in that context is benefit corporation in the U.S. Corporation settings, but it overlaps in a kind of way because they're trying to work for a better world. But I don't know, Mark, if you'd already looked to see that they do actually do ratings on B corporations at several different levels. Had you seen that? You're unmuted.
Yeah, I love the idea of B Corp. There's a few things that when I contacted them, I really thought, well,
yeah,
if one of the key things they do is just list all the B Corp things, that would be fantastic. And I emailed them, and I wanted to do that, but they just seem very reluctant. What was your feeling?
well, I haven't communicated with them. I was just asking whether you're aware of their rating system they have on the site. Adriel, can you pull up my screen share? So this is their rating for greening, which is just the first company I saw on their list. So it's got a rating of 92.3, and then they have it broken down by governance, a worker rating, a community rating, environment, customers, and then they rate each section. So that was interesting. Now that's not, of course, exactly what you're talking about. But it was a little closer than I hadn't checked on them in a year or so. So they've added a lot of features to their site. So I just wanted us to be aware that that exists, and then we could see whether we want to, if how is that overlap enough that this initiative doesn't have to go much further, or does it change the initiative to find a different niche, or other stuff.
So one question I have about this out of the gates is this U.S. only?
Most likely.
Because from what I know, a B Corp is a U.S. thing.
Most likely.
B Corp is global. B Corp is global.
Where do you...
Like this site is global? Because I think this company was actually in Chile, the one that you were just looking at, which is interesting. Now, is this something that people have to, I guess, is that close to what Mark was talking about, where people have to sort of sign up to get audited and sort of they provide their information in a questionnaire and then that gets summarized?
I can answer a lot of stuff about B Corps. There's a B Corp is a company that has applied to and been certified by B Lab, which is a nonprofit organization, and the company has to meet several pretty stringent criteria, triple bottom line criteria, people, planet, profit, etc., in order to be certified. And then they get an independent audit, and they have to, and they're audited annually, and they have to report how they're doing. So the information becomes accessible on the on the B Corp website, as we're seeing here. So that's one source of data. And now there's a confusion between a B Lab certified B Corp and a legally registered public benefit corporation. They're two different things. Okay. A public benefit corporation, also referred to as B Corp, which is what makes it confusing, is a type of legal entity. For all intents and purposes, it's essentially the same as a C Corp, except it is exempt from the mandate to maximize profits for shareholders. Okay, so it's incorporated specifically to be a social enterprise.
Well, I think you can still have it. You just have to have a benefit. You can still maximize. I mean, you can still have that in the charter. It just means you have to have something that is in addition to that. I don't think it means that you're not profit motivated. Some of them are.
Right, but it's triple bottom line. So of course you can make a profit, but your shareholders can't sue you because you invested in a community project. Because
Right.
the problem with a C corp is that, where you have shareholders, and not all companies that have shareholders are public companies, right? Be private company with private shareholders, but nonetheless, if the company decides to invest in a community project, some shareholder could say, wait a minute, that money could have come to us, right, as a dividend. Why are you wasting that money? It could be a profit for the shareholders. So the advantage of registering as a public benefit corporation, I think in Washington they're called social purpose organizations, is that they're social enterprises and they're expressly not designed exclusively to produce profits for shareholders. So they're exempt from that liability, which enables them to be social enterprises. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I want to, I think that's just underlines something that is so critical, is the confusion around this. And I
Right.
think that's why it's, we don't know anything about, I didn't know anything about B Corp. I didn't know anything about benefit corporations. And maybe that's one of the things, maybe that's would be part of the mandate of this initiative, is to make things, get that information out there and clear up all of this. But
Yeah, because the C Corp can become certified by VLAB.
yes,
It can.
yeah, I think I loved it. Tell me, Harrison, when you first heard of B Lab, were you not impressed? Did you not think that this could be the force that could change the world?
I thought it was definitely going in the right direction, because it is essentially, if you look at their criteria, what it takes. In fact, I actually applied to become a B Corp at one point with my social enterprise. But what I realized in doing it, and the feedback I got from them, was, I mean, the bar is really quite high to get that certification, and it's really designed for enterprise level corporations. It's not for startups, really. And most of where the greenwashing goes on, and the benefit, devoting profits to shareholders, is primarily at the enterprise level. So you got a lot of people say, oh, corporations are so bad, we got to get rid of corporations. Well, actually, things that have like a public trust, like, for example, drug companies, where there's tremendous profits, that I think that they should be required by law to become certified as B Corp. They can still be registered as a C Corp, but if they're certified a B Corp as well, then that's when you get the public transparency and accountability, as you can see on your screen.
Mm-hmm. So just looking from that, what's on there, there's a few things that I see that are really good, but I don't see a drill down capability to say how they came up with those scores, or what how they're doing over time, or an ability to choose what's relevant to me. So somebody else has come up with that score. So there's a few things missing from there, from what just came up in those initial discussions about what this app could be. Just at first blush, Alejandro, have you heard of B Corp? Alejandro, can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues. Yes, I have, and they do exist in Argentina and in Brazil. I don't know exactly about the rest of Latin America, but it's kind of new. Few years that it's happening here as well, and they mostly operate under the sort of umbrella concept of for profit for good, which is pretty much where I understand how it came down from the US. In legal terms, I think there is a law. I would need to check on that. And they have now a special legal representation. Before it was just another type of regular company that set itself up not to reinvest a percentage of their profits either on their people in the company or on a social cause. So I don't know about the details, but I can look that up. But yes, they do exist here.
Mm. So it still feels like they're doing good work, but it's just, why wouldn't they be pushing to have this at people's fingertips so that everybody, because initially that's what this app that we're talking about could be, this thing that would let you know right away where all the best companies to even invest or know about or do any kind of business with are.
Well, they're a particular niche. They're filling a particular niche. They don't have all the public benefit corporations on their site. That's not their bailiwick, right?
Mm.
So the app that you're talking about would want to include not only the B Lab certified B Corps, but also, excuse me, those startups and social enterprises and other companies that have registered as a public benefit corporation or a social purpose organization.
Well, I think we want beyond that. Go ahead.
I'd like to clarify that. So you initially mentioned Game B corporations or Game B businesses. So is it, are we limiting it to, businesses from people in the Game B community, or is it any business that we think the Game B community would appreciate, or is it any business that has, kind of what's the scope here?
No, yeah, and the criteria is still very much open. Carrie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just wondering how much, if you want to be certified as one of these B Corps, how much do they actually charge you for being registered? Harrison, do you know how much they charge you?
It's on a scale.
We can look that up. I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's on a scale. If you're a smaller company, they charge you less.
Right.
I remember reading that. I think going back to Bentley's question, that's the criteria. Originally, I thought we'd come up with some criteria that we thought would fit, but it's not restricted to just companies within Game B. But the original crowdsourcing could be from the Game B Facebook group members, and that just expand.
It looks like the prices start at $1,000 and cap out roughly at 50,000. And then after you do more than $1 billion in annual sales, it says based on size and complexity of your business. Yeah, there you go. So minimum 1,000 per year.
Just going back to criteria of what companies would be tracked. Originally, from those discussions, we came down to small companies. So in my mind, Bentley, it would be if you thought a company could fit the bill, you could put it forward, and then some group would vet it. Some internal group would vet it. That's how I pictured it.
Well, what was your initial criteria for vetting?
Well, just based on I don't even know if that's applicable, but I guess I was just anything that could be considered omni-win, a benefit environmentally, socially, that type of thing, where the person, you're not taking a huge amount of money for yourself. You have all the money coming in, where you're getting it from your suppliers, radical transparency as well.
So basically triple bottom line. Is that right?
Well, I have no idea what triple bottom line is, but does that sound like triple bottom line to you, Harrison? That maybe give us.
Yeah, the concept of triple bottom line is people, profit, and planet.
Okay.
right? The 3 Ps. So you can do well while doing good is the idea, right? So
Okay.
a company that is doing things for their people or their community, as well as things for the planet, right? Their products or services are actually beneficial or green or sustainable or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're profitable.
Okay.
It's
I
a,
had a question. Drop Adriel down. You can add himself back in at any point. Who is the user of this at the end, Mark? Is it someone looking to invest? Someone looking to buy a single product? Like, who are you envisioning using the app?
ethical shoppers, I would think.
Yeah,
Right?
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and anyone that's interested to see, like it would just be, it would be so simple to use that, and it would just people might have a curiosity thing. They're thinking about investing, they're thinking about buying stuff, and somebody say, didn't this company do this, this, and this, and aren't they, or to use Kerry's words, aren't they bastards? And you could look at it and say, well, no, they were bastards 2 years ago, but really they're doing really well now.
Right.
And this is a real thing. You don't have to worry about some third party telling you dirt on this corporation. You've got that actual information right there. So ethical shoppers, but like anyone that's interested.
Yeah, going back to the point about transparency and accountability, B Corp does a pretty good job of it for the corporations that are registered as B Corps. But on the social enterprises, they are also by law required to publicly report how well they're doing on accomplishing their social mission. Now, we do that just by putting the report on our website. So that data is also publicly available.
So why are you required, Harrison?
It's required by law. If you're registered as a public benefit corporation.
Oh, you're registered as a public benefit. Okay.
Yeah.
For U.S. companies.
For U.S. companies, exactly. And actually, the social benefit corporation or public benefit corporation is also in other countries as well. Like I was living in Taiwan for a while, and they had it there too. So it's becoming a global movement.
Just they may vary as far as requirements and reporting requirements and stuff, but yeah. So I guess the question is, so B Corp's probably the closest thing. Is everyone on this call, no one else is aware of any other existing initiatives that are doing what we're talking, and I think Mark, and it sounds like Harrison, y'all have done research to determine that, because that's kind of one of the first steps in a project is
one question is, do you want to include nonprofits or not?
I imagine nonprofits would be preferred.
Well, I don't know why you'd exclude them. Originally, I thought on a list, is there, yeah, I guess so. I was thinking at first, would there be interest in even general interest in seeing the nonprofits, but I guess there would be. I originally thought
there are several nonprofits that produce products and services or have spin-off companies.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think profitness is not a factor. I mean, it'd be something we'd want to show, but that's not a deciding factor unless you'd say that a nonprofit would get even more points, because the goal is the main initiative, and I don't know, Mark, this idea came out before you knew about Game B, or is it in response to what you've been learning in Game B, or is it unrelated?
I think it's always been there.
Okay. Yeah.
Both like 20, and I think anybody who's ever gone to do business with somebody and say, I wish I knew if this person or this company had done trash in the past. That's always been there. I think I've always had that.
Yeah, so we wouldn't. I can't imagine we'd exclude it and wouldn't have a requirement that you'd be incorporated or a requirement that you'd be,
No.
you know, anything. I mean, you could be selling soaps out of your car,
Yeah.
and you could potentially be included, right?
I had a question about we had discussed before that although Game B corporations are the important ones, that if you don't have the Game A corporations in there, it's hard to compare them. Are you still looking to include all of them, or just the ones like kind of like B Corp does, just the good ones?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, um, at first, I wasn't thinking that, but you're right. It would be a way to compare and just crowdsource it. Because if they're going to be non-transparent, but just crowdsource it and say, okay, these are what the bottom feeders are doing, and if they want to raise on our list, well, they can contact us and we can connect with them. But this is what we know. So I think
I would recommend not doing that initially, because if you have, okay, here are the good guys, right? If you just have a list of here are the good guys, and if you want to buy ethically or invest ethically, these are the places to go. Then the other companies who aren't on that list are going to go, wait a minute, maybe we should, see about getting on this list. Maybe we should change our ways. It would be an incentive. Whereas if you're actually saying bad things about them, that these are the bottom feeders or whatever, that can get into a lot of unnecessary, lawsuits or whatever.
True. At the same time, as a consumer, if I go there to use it and one company has a score, one company's not there, I'm not instantly going to assume they're bad. I'll just be like, oh, I don't know. So I can't compare those two, as opposed to if you have a profile for both, one has a score of 90 and one has a score of 4. Oh, all right. They've looked at this company and I don't really want to do business based on what I know. But I do agree that opens up potential legal issues with that company not liking their score and possibly suing you to alleviate it.
Right.
Would you be including what people are investing or where they're investing in what they're doing? Because, like, I know a load of companies who probably do good for the world and that, but they've got investment portfolios which involve sort of like arms deals and stuff like that. So, would you be including where that company's investing money into?
That's the ideal model.
Right.
That might not be. So ideally, I would like to see like and this is my infatuation with holochain because I think it's kind of cool, but it could show all those connections everywhere, and it could come up and show it to you. You could turn it around and see everything. And if its money is going out somewhere and you don't know about it, then it becomes gray. The more gray a company has, the less reliable and trust you can put in that. But I think it's important, Carrie, to eventually have that. You may not have that at the beginning.
Right. Okay.
I just want to have one question, Mark, about you're talking about an app, right? So you're talking about developing an app for a smartphone. Is that correct? You're muted.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So my understanding, and I'm not a technical guy, but my understanding is that first you develop something for an iPhone, and then once that's developed, then you develop something that is also usable on Android.
No, I wouldn't recommend that. So
that's not the process.
I'm a developer,
Okay.
and really, especially if you're starting out and you have if you have an app that does not require any special features for the phone, and especially if you're starting out in a low cost endeavor or startup or something without a lot of funding, then you develop an app and a technology that can run on all platforms. So
You can do that.
It'd be yeah. So it'd be a website and it'd be an app for iPhone and Android. There's several technologies you can do to do that. And so when Mark is saying app, the first version would probably be a web app, so just on the web, and then you can create a shortcut on your phone and use it on your phone like a built-in app. And then if we have money, we would then deploy that to Android and iPhone stores and the Microsoft store.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Because the reason I ask is because when I started my online farmers market, I was first looking at, well, maybe I should just create an app. And when I got into it, it was like, oh man, the development curve and the amount of money necessary to actually build a smartphone app, before you even know if you've got market fit, is kind of ridiculous. So, after wasting 2 years talking to programmers, I found out, you know what? I could build the damn e-commerce platform myself in WooCommerce for $1,000, and I just waded in and did it myself, right?
Yep.
And I told people, if they wanted it on their smartphone, well, just drag the URL to your home screen, and then you can come to us anytime just by hitting the button, because the website is mobile friendly. Mm-hmm. So that saved me about $200,000 in about 5 years of development. Just to bring it up.
That's absolutely true. And all those developers who told you that, gave you that advice, were less than ethical.
I'll just say, as an example of all this, I brought up the B Corp site on my phone, and it's working just fine, right? So I think that's sort of an example of starting with a website, and I'm sure that the site works fine on iPhones as well. And then I think to Bentley's point, it's just if you want to access certain features of the phone, like the camera or GPS or something like that, you might start to get into, okay, now we need an app. But if all I'm doing is trying to find a company, a website should work fine.
I just wanted to highlight, we had asked if anyone else knew of anything like this. This is not for businesses necessarily, but I'm guessing it was Daniel said charitynavigator.org helps you find charities. I was on there a bit trying to find the We charity because Canada's had a bit of controversy with them to see how they scored, but then it just brought up every list of any charity that has We in it. So I don't quite know, but just wanted to offer that to our listeners and to Mark for that. charitynavigator.org.
Yeah.
Another one.
In that vein, there's also Effective Altruists. They have, it's not the name of their charity picker, but they have they try and pick charities based on the most evidence-based impact on the world. If you search Effective Altruists, it would come up. I can't remember what it's called though.
And
I've been working quite a few charities, and some of them were quite dodgy, but he still got the funding and he still got looked as if, oh yeah, we're all singing and dancing and all good and that. So I'm a bit dubious about charities. Just wanted
so when
to
you
add
say
that
they're
in.
quite dodgy, Kerry, how do you know? What do you mean?
Oh, just in terms of operating, and how they operated and how they treat people. Because there's one I used to work for homeless and that. And basically most of these homeless charities, they'll roll you out. Because I've been homeless myself, so I kind of know, they kind of roll you out for PR purposes. They're all singing and dancing to the outside people. But obviously those who sort of like involved and who they said they're going to help, they didn't really help that much. You know what I mean? But the public perception of them is, oh, they're great, they're doing this, they're doing that. So you won't see any of that listed on any of the B Corps or any of the charity navigators. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to rock the boat and, call them out or what have you. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying of that.
So would crowdsourcing get around that, do you think?
Well, I think it would, because I think right. If you're going down the charity route, then you've got all the forms and everything else you'd have to fill in, and you've got to jump to somebody else's tune, right? And even when you go down, as I said, once you go down investors, you've got to basically do as they say, right? Because they'll be wanting money back as well. So if they want you to do something unethical because you've already took the money off them, you're going to have to do that to deliver now. So your arse is theirs. You know what I mean? So that's why I was thinking maybe crowdsourcing would be better, because then you'd know who actually owns, be a collective or a co-op or something, rather than sort of like having investors. I think I'd be more happy with sort of like collective co-op rather than investors, or going down the charity route as well, because I'd never touch another charity with a barge pole in terms of support and that. Like, because you see these people on the streets who collect money with the tins. They call them chuggers in the UK, right? And you see them on the street collecting, right? They're run by marketing companies who basically say to the charity, right, how much do you want to earn this year? So they give them a total. So anything over and above what those chuggers on the street get goes back to the marketing company. The charity doesn't even see that bit. But nobody knows about that because nobody says fuck all, eh? So that's why I'm kind of dubious about the charity sector and all that shit.
And to that extent, even the money that makes it to the charity, there's some charities that are notoriously bad for spending like 90% of the money they raise on administrative costs.
Yeah, and mostly sort of like CEO salaries as well.
Yeah, and bonuses, all that stuff. And it's like they spend, I pulled up a list, I don't want to say any company names just in case, but like there's one example that's apparently like a knockoff of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, where they spent $600,000 granting wishes in 2010 and spent 10 times that on fundraisers.
Yeah, so I don't want to be part of any charity thing. Because as I said, I've seen the bullshit from the inside.
Well, I think this type of a project is great for that because a lot of this is available in numbers. Like this list of, the best and worst charities, that's based on stuff they have to report. And the fact that they're forced to report so that you can go look and say, show me the worst charities. If you were to list charities on a site or like on an app like this, you could probably fairly easily figure out what the percentage they spend on administrative costs and, towards their actual goal, and then have that be a part of the score for charities. So you can say, oh, that charity is great. They spend, 75% on their actual, goal. Cool. That's fine. Oh, that one gives 95% to administrative costs and salaries. Not so cool.
So I just want to bring the conversation back to Mark's questions. So we have 20 minutes left. What would you like to focus on, Mark? What would you like us to think about and crowdsource for you?
Well, actually, I'm still in the wide net mode, so I'm not too I'm not too bothered by the direction it's gone. We've gone down a rabbit hole as far as charities have gone a little bit, but it brings me back. I'm just wondering, would that radical transparency module cover a lot of this if we could get that filled? Plus the crowdsourcing, just the amount of horsepower that's gone in to getting that information that we talked about has been a good demonstration of how the app could have addressed a lot of this. We're 6 people or 8, however many, that are really concerned about how we spend and how we spend our money and just bothered by the amount of malevolence that's out there. People that we don't want to help them in their tasks. So again, this is just showing me that. So I'm willing to let this kind of take whatever direction.
All right.
If I may, I'll just some input on this. I think initially, we haven't really clearly defined Game B yet anyway, okay? But we have a sense that it's something that's good for people and planet, essentially, okay, as a minimum criteria. And the only public places where that sort of intention is documented or tracked or whatever is with the B Lab certified C Corps and those entities that are legally registered as social enterprises in the form of public benefit corporations or social purpose corporations. And I think, rather than making the project too initially ambitious and time consuming, if you want to get something out there, my recommendation would be to focus on those 2 things and get all the data for that, and then get some feedback and do an iterative process at that point, an agile process.
I guess I hear what you're saying, and that was something that I thought initially too. I was excited when I contacted B Lab. I was like, let's get something going. I want to just trumpet it from the hills. And again, they just seem very, very reluctant.
You don't need their permission.
I know, but their reluctance makes me think. It just gives me a little bit of pause. Bentley had brought something up because it just happened. It kind of bubbled up from the top, and we circled back to it. That it feels like the trust thing is a big thing, and what we know and who we trust seems to be the small local businesses. And we all seem to kind of want to give them prominence and points and all the help we can. So I would eventually, I would like to see B Corp and the benefit corporations on there, and I think that's a good idea, as well as the other sources where people can go and check these things out. But I would really like to see the small local businesses that people think are doing well brought up to the fore. I don't know what just put that out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. My only other thing would be, one of the major benefits that I foresee in an app like this is to encourage the larger corporations to start to get ethical.
Yes.
I just posted an article on Facebook where the maker Gilead of Remdesivir are withholding something that works better because they can make more money on Remdesivir. Right? This is a public, this is a company that has a public trust. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and these fuckers want to make more money because this drug is going to make more money than the one that they're withholding, right? That's criminal.
Although technically they could be sued if they didn't.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, exactly. They could be sued if they didn't. Whereas if they were
a problem
B
with
Corp,
our legal system.
if they were, B Labs certified as a B Corp, that data would be publicly transparent.
So, hold on, just back up a second. I just found that interesting. Bentley, did you say that they could be sued if they
that corporation's only legal responsibility is to make profit for their owners, and if they fail to, anyone, even who's not an owner of the company, who is not a stockholder, can form a suit against them for not supporting that.
Because they're publicly registered.
Yeah, if they're a public American corporation.
So there's a huge mission in what you want to do just by exposing that kind of crap. The companies that have a public trust like that, and scaring other profiteers and extractionists from being caught in the same public reputation trap.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think is really a worthwhile purpose.
Yeah.
I think on that note, something that I find interesting, I'm not sure if your sort of plans to have any spot for this, Mark, but to not just talk about the companies, but also the people that make the decisions. Like if we know, who's the owner, who's the board, who, like that sort of thing. Because there's times where a company might make terrible choices. Well, a company can't make choices, people do. And if those people leave and go to a different company and better people join that company, who should those actions follow? And it might be both. It might say, well, this company did that, and even though the people responsible left, that's still a part of their history. But also, here's the people that voted for that action, or to the extent that information is available, and now here's the companies they're a part of.
So in the programming world, that person is an object that's connected to other objects, but you can always trace the past actions of that one object, and then maybe you could see a history of the objects that are in influential positions in a company, and just know the potential for disaster just looking at that. All there. Yeah.
That's a really good point, because you've got interlocking directorates. A lot of companies that want to do social engineering or whatever, they have these front groups that have a really nice sounding social name, but they're up to no good. So who actually owns this, and what's the mother companies, and that sort of thing. That would be fascinating.
Sort of me starting with who the app is for and getting very focused on it, whether it's for investing, whether it's for the person who's purchasing a product, because most of us don't care about the company. It's not that we don't care about the company. I'm just not purchasing based on the company because I have to buy my cereal, that kind of thing, then because I think all of these are very big ideas that we all want, but where do you start? Because if you're starting with what Harrison's talking about, then we want to start with this 500 S&P companies, right? Like, and start marking them, and we're not looking at Game B. Whereas if we want to bring business to really good companies that are more local, then you start with that, and that's kind of also like Harrison's actual project, right? Of like the online farmers market. Now that would be focused on food and such, but like start with one, and then it broadens out. Which one do you want to start with? And maybe we're still casting a net, but which one kind of speaks to you more?
When you talk about the products, there's nothing stopping you from having a list of products and their parent companies as well. And so you could have a lot of products on there, and the companies that are related to them, and you can make your buying decision just based on that. If you have a database you could easily have a database of the majority of the most popular products out there.
Yeah, so it sounds like your goal is saying the user of the site, the primary user, the target would be the consumer, the ethical, conscious consumer.
I think you could include social investors as well. Those two publics.
Well, you have to have one target, and it has to be small, and then you can have a second target after that. So yeah, as a secondary target, you could do that, but it's considered more efficient to choose a specific.
One of the problems is funding. Like some of these smaller companies, if that's one of your priorities, one of their biggest problems is getting funding and finding social impact investors. I mean, there's billions of dollars out there for social impact, but how do they link up, right?
Well, if they're producing products,
this app could serve as a place for social impact investors to see these little guys who are doing great things, and then funnel some funds to them if that's one of your objectives.
Yeah, I think that if you start out with those two objectives, it'll double the cost of what you're doing, and so I think you should pick one. Mark, you're muted. Mark, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I'm thinking of myself, and I'm both of those. What Harrison is saying, I'm both of those. I'm the curious person. I'm three things at least, but I'm the curious person. I'm the consumer, but I'm also the investor, always actively looking for a way to find a company. Like I will drive out of my way to spend money with a store that I think is making the world a better place.
Well, okay, let's clarify though. That's consuming. That's not investing.
It's also I.
Are you currently investing? Are you investing money in a social enterprise right now that you expect to get funds back for?
I've been trying for 20 years to try and untangle the back story so I could find, because I've tried ethical funds, and then when you look at them, you find that they're not what you think they are, so I as a consumer, I think I consume products, but I'm also consuming these financial products. So I think it's still a consumer.
Right, but you would still be a consumer of the financial product, and the financial product would choose the businesses. So you're not the person in charge of the financial project choosing the businesses. So you're not the target of what Harrison is suggesting.
And I think focusing on consumers will help investors, because one of the main things that an investor wants to know is, do consumers want this? And if they can use information on that site to say, hey, here's the people who are doing good, and then if there's some element of like, here's other, how many of our members have shopped here or something like that, that can start to give some element of, oh, I as an investor might want to invest ethically. This site has a list of those companies, and here's the ones that those members are finding the most, the most interesting and buying the most from. To me, as an investor, that would be, a really important buying signal. And you'd probably do other stuff too, but I just think that's the tie.
The key of choosing a single target for when you're starting a project is that you will get other targets hit by that, like Adriel's saying. It's just which one are you focusing on so that you can be more efficient the use of your time and resources. Yeah,
it's sort of like if you focus exactly what that person needs, you're a lot more likely to be able to achieve it, as opposed to, I'll give 3 features for consumers and 3 features for investors and 3 features for businesses. It gets messy, and then consumers probably won't want to use it.
Yes, that's just on that, from a marketing and also sort of like startup perspective, I agree with that. And I will add to that, what is the benefit for each of those users, your main user, consumers, and then as the side or secondary audience or user, the investors, and then just like spell that out. What exactly do they get? And it could be 2-3 things. It doesn't have to be one thing that can be distilled later on, but that also helps in the communication and distilling the idea down the line. So.
Just letting everybody know, Alejandra, it comes from a marketing background. Just tell everybody what you're doing that for now. And she just made a big career change.
Yes, I did. I come from advertising and digital marketing, working for digital agencies and startups. And I just made my kids are screaming at me right now, I'm sorry. But I made a career change. Now I'm working on climate communication. So I went from an ad agency back to nonprofit, which that's where I started. So I've been doing full circle. I'm very happy about that.
Yes, so that's her wheelhouse.
I just wanted to say, if the intention is to provide a place where people can find ethical companies, then it's going to serve the purpose of both consumers and curious investors. So, focusing on consumers would be good, but if you're going to list products, then you start duplicating things like consumer reports and gets into all of that. So that's kind of a different activity. I mean, you could have links, you could pull the data in on products, but if you're going to actually do product evaluation, that's a really big task.
I just thought of a third option with what Alejandra just shared, that we as people are kind of products too. That like when I'm looking for somebody to hire to do coding or to do marketing, if I'm paying them, and I'd rather it be volunteer because then I know you're passionate about it. But when I'm looking to pay, I want to know I'm looking for a game B person, even a game B electrician and a game B plumber, right? Like that level could be somewhere to start. I know it's not. I just wanted to throw that out there that if you started there, then it kind of leads both into product and company, because then it's like, well, wait, this is a grouping of plumbers and a grouping of that. But that's probably going. I just wanted to share.
Well, it's actually close to what Adriel brought up, and is that I suppose if decision makers and things like that are objects in this kind of world, then it could track some of that, but maybe not down to the plumber level, but possibly, I don't know. It depends on what is cost effective to design, I guess. But it's.
I guess I meant more starting there. That like as someone who, if we're hiring people for Game B projects or Game B anything, then starting with people who, but then it brings everything else up. Like, how do I know you're a good person? How do I know you're Game B? But
okay.
In your case, the people are still businesses, because if it's a software developer, you're paying them for it. That's a business. and they just have one product. So it's still not at the product level. But yeah, small business. When we say small business, that could go down to individual contractors if we wanted to allow that. And yeah, and I kind of like the idea of starting out. Well, I mean, I think if it's going to be open and crowdsourced, it needs to be open and crowdsourced, and then we have to figure out moderation. But you know, encouraging through the marketing of the site to say, hey, if you know a good business, a good small business, or even local, then here's a place to post it. But anyway, so that's my thought. I don't know if it's good.
We're also at the hour mark, so we're at the hour mark, Mark.
Okay. No, this was very, very useful again. A lot of information. I feel like it's both expanding a little bit, but just a little more, not much. But it's we've also narrowed down. So it.
And we never even talked about the private dicks.
The private dick. We have now.
The private dicks.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's and this and it's actually an important point. The idea that we want to have this spread like wildfire by empowering people to be what Kerry calls the private dicks, to go out and investigate, feel like they're making a change by contributing to this list and this growing database and crowdsourcing and having something, you can train them, give them some basic training on what to look for, and then you have maybe a network of people that they can say, hey, I have this question. And then it just gets looked at, right? And so they have something backing them up. They can go out there and actually, be heavyweights, because not only are they trained a little bit, but they have this network of people, 2,000 people at least in the background going, yeah, I can weigh in on that. I know a little bit about that and stuff like that. Anyways,
that's where you want to start, Mark. Getting a group of people together who want to do that, it's going to emerge what they like when they're doing research, what it is that they can find out about a company. Mm-hmm. So even finding a handful of those people and then working from that point to create it can be right. Yeah.
Yeah,
just an online spreadsheet.
Yeah, I think that's probably what was going to happen with the first narrowing down meeting anyways, is just a post on some of these things and an invitation for people to weigh in. And it would be good if we could have that thing Adriel was talking about, where if they're a bank of ideas and everybody could see their idea on there and their suggestion and where it was in the whole scheme of things. But also finding a way to organically build this network of we're going to have to find a different name, Kerry. Private dicks, I just don't think will, or maybe it should stay that way. I don't know. But
what I was thinking, right, in terms of the private dicks, the target audience would be stay-at-home mums, right? Stay-at-home mums who want to get the best products for the kids. Alejandro would back me up here. Stay-at-home mums, right? You've got all these mums networks out there who want the right thing, who want people to do the right thing, and Lord behold, anyone who doesn't do the right thing, So train them to be the private dicks, you know what I mean? And then have an army of these private dick mothers, you know what I mean, who are just going out saying, "Oh, you're a shitty company." Off the record, don't ever buy it again.
You went from private dicks to private dick mothers, and I don't know.
I was gonna say we could call it the exact opposite of private dicks, but I won't. Anyway, public vaginas. No, sorry. And with that, we're gonna stop the recording because the person whose internet this is probably has to get back to work, and we can continue the conversation though. But thank you everyone else for showing up, and this was an amazing conversation. We're here tomorrow for our roundtables at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Same YouTube and Facebook group.